We already have some questions in the chat, and I will just start with the first one. So the first one was from Jose, and he wanted to know, what about languages? Is, for example, non-English language coverage when doing the search?
This is an example for limitations where you have to be careful. And my favorite example since the pandemic is, if you think back to the very start of the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the publications were in Chinese. And so if you would say, okay, I always limit only to English, then you would have missed basically a third or something of the evidence base that existed in the start. So there are many cases where limiting to English might not be a problem, but this is something that should be decided based on the research question.
Okay, thank you. Then the next question, I think you covered it already a bit, because it's, which text analysis tools would you recommend? Maybe you have something to add on this.
So I generally always use PubReminder because it's so easy to use. And I use more complex tools like the search builder or Voyant, which I did not include here, for more complex questions. And if I say complex, I mean complex in a terminological, from a terminological point of view.
Thank you. Then to ask if it is possible to show how Search Builder works. I'm pretty sure it is possible to show it right now. But do you have a recommendation? Are there any videos?
So there is one video. I guess I can. Well, I'm not sure if I find it, that that is a presentation of Search Builder. It's an R package. Maybe we can go on with the questions, and then try to open it, and maybe I can show it quickly. But yeah.
Okay, so I mean, there are some general questions that I could address, and in the meantime.
Okay, yeah, great.
Because there was one question, is there a possibility to do a rapid review for the interpretative phenomenological analysis design research studies methods and be validated or not? So there will be a webinar on rapid qualitative reviews. So for all of you who are interested in doing this, the webinar will be on February 28th next year. And of course, so it is possible to do a rapid qualitative review. But the focus of our guidance is more on intervention reviews. But there is this webinar. Then the second general question is, do you have recommendations in communicating the findings of rapid reviews? If we are not doing great, that's tricky. You're right. And that is why we recommend to use GRADE, because it helps to interpret the findings and communicate the findings. And there will also be a webinar on synthesis and certainty of evidence assessment in rapid reviews on the 25th of January next year. And another general question on rapid reviews is, what is the duration for which a rapid review remains valid? And does it need to be frequently updated? And is there a need to do protocol registration for rapid reviews? So for Cochrane reviews, I think rapid reviews, the guidance is like shorter than 6 months should be the duration. I think it depends on the topic, the complexity of the topic, the urgency of the topic, how large your team is. So we cannot say there is a general rule how long a rapid review should take to be valid. So it depends on several factors. And yes, you should have a protocol and register the rapid review, but at least have a protocol, because it helps you to do everything streamlined and quickly if you think of all the steps beforehand. Irma, did you manage to find?
Yes. So first of all, let me share my screen again. So this is our studio, and Search Builder has a user interface, a graphical user interface, which is very nice because I'm not really good with R. So I really need this. And what you do is you upload a RIS file from your preliminary search result. Ideally, that should be mainly PubMed results this is because it compares to PubMed or Medline results, and we can here create a random. Yes. So first thing it does is it takes my complete test set and it separates them into a development set and a validation set. So the idea here is to be even less biased. The text analysis and building the search strategy will be built on the development set. And when we have a search strategy, we will use the validation set to see how well our search performs and then to do additional changes if necessary. And what we see here, let me make this bigger, is we have term frequency, and you see the most frequent terms are really not helpful in developing the search. But we also have this thing, the set score, which compares to a random set of PubMed records. And this set score of 10,000 means these are terms that only exist in my test set and not in not in the random PubMed example. If I have this option to hide rare items or to hide rare terms, which are terms that only appear once and are not in the random PubMed example, I think. And this whole thing, this tool has been developed by the German IQWiC, and they use the so-called objective or objectified approach to search building. So what they do is they use only search terms that have a set score of 20 or higher. So what we would do if we did this is we would start here and go through all of these potential terms and decide which ones are relevant to our search and for what section of the search strategy. The tool also has analysis of mesh terms on their own, of qualifiers of mesh terms, of all keywords. This includes keywords that are from other databases if my test set has records from other databases, and we can also look at free text terms in context. So, for example, my test set here is about obstetric emergencies. So obviously obstetric is an important term, and here I can look at the context in which this word is used. But it also gives me phrases. And what this here does, it tells me that simulation training, which is the intervention I was interested in, appears, oh, they have changed the wording, appears either next to each other, so simulation training, or with one word in between or with two words in between. So I can use this to build more complicated search strings using proximity operators. There is a video introducing this tool. I see if I find the link and put it in the chat.
Thank you. There was one question to your presentation. How many known relevance do you need to do frequency analysis?
Oh, yeah, that is a good question, and it really depends on the topic. Some topics they have very little variation in terminology, so you don't need as many known relevant studies as others. And generally, so it's also a question of time. So if I only have 5 records, it might be quicker to just read the abstracts. Yeah, it depends on the topic and the terminology. I'm sorry.
And a general question, I mean, you covered it, but again, why is word frequency analysis important? Maybe you want to emphasize on it.
So text analysis in general is important because it gives me an idea of what words have been used in the abstracts that are relevant to me. One problem we run into very often is that what the search question says is important, and how this is reported in the abstracts can differ a lot. So there are some things, for example, that are simply not in the abstract. And looking at the known relevant studies gives you an idea of what words have been used and what words you can search for. And doing it with a frequency analysis is just helpful because it gives you a very quick overview of the words that have been used most frequently. So these are probably the ones that should be in your search strategy, if they are also relevant to your topic. As we saw, the most frequent words are usually something like they and the and are, and so that's not very helpful.
Thank you. Then there is a question, does Cochrane accept protocols for qualitative rapid reviews extracting the differences and similarities between two similar constructs? So this is, again, a more general question. So we know that Cochrane accepts rapid reviews, but there should always be a justification why you do a rapid review. So is it very urgent? Do you have a commissioner that needs the results very quickly, or would it also be good to do a systematic review or a qualitative evidence synthesis in a regular pace? So Cochrane accepts them only if there are good reasons for doing it in a rapid way, but there is no standardized rule that qualitative rapid reviews are not accepted, as far as I know. Are there any additional questions? Yes, a new question for a rapid review. The guideline recommends central, Medline, and M-based databases. Could we choose only one of these 3, or do we have to use all 3, or does it depend on database relevance to the topic?
First of all, it always depends on relevance. So the Cochrane recommendation of these 3 databases is designed to find randomized controlled trials. And the Cochrane Rapid Review Methods group proposes to selecting 2 of those. And I would also say it's always important to have 2 information sources. So if you use 2 databases out of these 3, that would be appropriate to find randomized control trials. It's not necessarily appropriate if you also want to find observational studies.
Yep. And there's also very nice feedback to your presentation in the chat. Thank you. It's always great to hear.
Yeah, I put in the chat a link to a YouTube video by Claudia Kapp, who was the one who developed Search Builder. And she presents the basics of the Search Builder and how it works. It's an earlier version than the one that is available now, but it covers the basics.
Thank you. Could you also maybe post a link to the Search Builder R tool package, because one person couldn't find it in the internet? And there's
sure.
Thank you. One question, what we think of rapid reviews as compared to systematic reviews for education, such as master's degrees project? I would like to stress that rapid reviews should be conducted by people who are experienced doing systematic reviews. It always appears like the easier method or the easier thing to do, but actually it's important that you are familiar with systematic review methods to be aware of all the possible biases you could introduce by streamlining, abbreviating several steps. So I would not start with the rapid review for master's degree project, to maybe a systematic review and pair students up so they can do things dually and learn the process. And is there a database you would recommend for observational studies?
Oh, no. Well, so Medline usually for healthcare topics, and there is a very nice search filter for Medline for controlled non-randomized studies, which is very useful. And then the second database should be chosen depending on the topic. So for most topics, you could use Embase, for example, but it really depends.
Then there is a follow-up to the traditional systematic review can be time-consuming and intensive for master's dissertations that are time-bound. What then would you recommend? I mean, you could do a full systematic review, but focus the question to keep it narrow, for example. But I think, so I wouldn't abbreviate methodological steps so that they learn in general what is the full systematic review process, but you could, for example, limit the language during the search or something like that might be reasonable for your topic. Okay, any additional questions? If not, okay, to clarify, did you say there was a limiter on Medline for non-randomized controlled studies?
It's not a limiter, it's a filter. I can send you the link to the publication.
And there's a comment from Aaron, to enhance sensitivity, we could use proximity search.
Yes.